We all now are fully aware that in the end of the 20th century, our world has been observed closely by intelligences much greater than humanity's, and yet with the same corporeal impermanence as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacency, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet, across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. It was near the end of October. Business was better, the war scare was over. More men were back at work, sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 31st, the Crossley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by winds of a light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We now take you to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you will be entertained by the music of Ramon Roquello and his orchestra.
Now a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Bolero Ranchero Mexicano, Ramon Roquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The stereoscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving towards the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observations and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Ramon Roquello, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York. Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with a noted astronomer, Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on the event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We now return you, until then, to the music of Ramon Raquel and his orchestra. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey, where Claire Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claire Phillips, speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton. I am standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through a giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides his ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted. He is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world by telephone or other communications. Professor, may I begin our questions? Professor, would you please tell our radio audience what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Ms. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now, because Mars happens to be at the nearest point to the Earth in opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor Pearson?
Not canals. I can assure you of that, Ms. Phillips, although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're quite convinced, as a scientist, that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for these gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Ms. Phillips, I cannot account for it.
Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pearson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. One moment, please. Professor Pearson has just passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Miss Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the National History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Princeton. Please investigate. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Ms. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Claire Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of McGill University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 8:20 p.m. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now nearer home comes a special announcement from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object believed to be a meteorite fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene and will have our commentator, Claire Phillips, give you a word description as soon as she can reach there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Marinette in Brooklyn, where Bobby Milletti and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Claire Phillips again at the Wilmer Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and myself made the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin to paint for you a picture of the strange scene before my eyes, like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree it must have struck on its way down. What I can see of the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. At least, not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge cylinder. It has a diameter of... What would you say, Professor Pearson?
What's that?
What is the diameter?
About 30 yards.
30 yards. The metal on the sheath is... well, I've never seen anything like it. The colour is sort of yellowish white. Curious spectators are now pressing close to the objects, in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing to one side, please? Here's Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmoth, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard?
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Step closer, please.
Oh, pardon me?
Closer and louder, please.
Well, I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsing.
Louder, please, and closer.
That professor fellow was talking about Mars. So I was half dozing and half...
Yes, Mr. Wilmoth. Then what happened?
As I was saying, I was listening to the radio kind of halfways.
Yes, Mr. Wilmoth. And then you saw something?
Not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound.
Yes?
Like this. Kind of like 4th of July rocket.
Then what?
I seen kind of greenish streak, and then zingo! Something smacked the ground.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmoth?
Knocked me clear out of my chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmoth.
I was kind of riled.
Thank you.
Want me to tell you some more?
No, that's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field in the back of us. Police are trying to rope off the roadway leading to the farm, but it's no use. Cars' headlights throw an enormous spot on the pit where the object's half buried. Some of the more daring souls are now venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. There's something I haven't mentioned. Perhaps you've already caught it on your radio. Listen. Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. Now, we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Oh, Professor Pearson.
Yes, Miss Phillips?
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface. I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes into a meteorite. This thing is smooth and, as you can see, of cylindrical shape.
Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw. The thing must be hollow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's crawling. Someone or something. I can see, peering out of the black hole, 2 luminous discs. Are they eyes? Good heavens! Something's wriggling out of the shadow, like a grey snake. Now it's another one, and another. They look like tentacles to me. There, I can see the thing's body. It's large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But that face, indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. The eyes gleam like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped, with saliva dripping from its rimless lips. The crowd falls back now. They've seen plenty. The monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. This is the most extraordinary experience. I can't find words. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. We can't quite see who. Oh, yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Now they've parted. The professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole, a flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means. Wait! Something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Good Lord, they're turning into flame. Now, the whole field's caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles. It's spreading everywhere. It's coming this way.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there is some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We now continue with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have been handed a message that comes from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just a moment. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill, their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I've been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far west as Princeton and east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass issued by state or military authorities. 4 companies of state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill, and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the range of military operations. Thank you.
You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back into their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. Combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames, which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you just a moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communications with eyewitnesses of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at the farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pearson, brought to you by direct wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can give you no authoritative information. Either as to their nature, their origin, or the purposes here on Earth. If they're a destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectorial explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. This heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition. Much like the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Claire Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Now, here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia stationed outside Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here's a bulletin from State Police. Prince Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit and no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We have received a request from the militia at Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object which lies in a pit directly below our position is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make it out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. It looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods, bordering the Milestone River. Probably fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. Some of the companies are deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it will all be over. Lieutenant,
Yes, sir.
it's all yours.
Wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. But as the captain stated, our troops are on the edge of the Wilmoth farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an old metal tube. No, that wasn't a shadow, Captain.
Lieutenant,
Sir, there's something moving. Solid metal, kind of shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder.
it's standing on legs,
It's going higher and higher.
rearing up on a sort of framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it.
Captain?
Hold on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet of Mars. The battle, which took place tonight at Grover's Mill, has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by any army in modern times. 7,000 men, armed with rifles and machine guns, pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. At this time, martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. We take you now to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country. nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up here in the studio. We are informed the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here is a special bulletin from New York. Cables received from English, French, German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. Majority voice opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. Attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at a close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops, moving north towards Somerville with population fleeing ahead of them. Heat ray not in use. Although advancing at express train speed, invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and the countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first, embedded in a great swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up second invading unit before cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up position in the foothills of the Watchung Mountains. Another bulletin here from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Here's a bulletin from Winston Field, Long Island. Fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosives flying north in pursuit of the enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. Just a moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we've run special wires to the artillery line in adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery located in the Watchung Mountains.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire.
140 yards to the right side.
Shift range, 39 meters. Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire.
Ahead, sir.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection, 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire.
Can't see the snow outside.
What is it?
You're letting off smoke.
Put on your gas masks.
Flat smoke, sir!
Get ready to fire.
Moving this way!
24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection. 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire. Get the range. 23 meters. 22 degrees.
Army bombing plane V-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Vaught, commanding 8 bombers. Reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Vaught, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine already crippled. Believed hit by shell from Army gun at Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. Heavy black fog hanging close to the earth. Of extreme density, nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing the Passaic River into Jersey marshes. Another straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. Machines are close together now. We're ready to attack. Planes circling. Ready to strike. 1,000 yards and we'll be over the first. 800 yards. 600. 400. 200. There they go. The giant arm raised. Green flash. They're spraying us with flames. 2,000 feet. Massive caution alarm. Set the panel. Engines are giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them. Plane and all. Diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8.
This is Bayonne, New Jersey. Call Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey. Call Langham Field. Please come in.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of...
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard.
2 X-ray 2 Lima calling CQ. 2 X-ray 2 Lima.
This is 8 X-ray 3 Rodeo. Coming back at 2 X-ray 2 Lima.
How's reception? How's reception? Okay, please. Where are you? Are you there? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm speaking to you from the roof of the broadcasting building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end. People are holding service below us in the cathedral. Now, I look down the harbor. All manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population, pulling out from the docks. The streets are all jammed. Noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in the city. Wait a minute. Enemy now in sight above the palisades. 5 great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man, wading through a brook. A bulletin handed to me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside Buffalo. One in Chicago. St. Louis. Seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. His steel, cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. They're lifting their metal hands. This is the end. Smoke comes out now. Black smoke, drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running towards the East River. Thousands of them, dropping like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, 100 yards away. It's 50 feet. You're not gonna get me without a fight.
X-ray 2 Lima calling.
8 X-ray 3
Romeo.
Please, come in.
Isn't there anyone on the air?
Isn't there anyone on the
air? Isn't there anyone?
2 X-ray
2 Lima.
I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I've been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill. It's a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems like a part of another life, a life that has no continuity. The present, furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pens these words on the back of some astronomical notes, bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my torn clothes, and I try to connect them with a professor. A professor who lives in Princeton, and who on the night of October 31st glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? As time passes when there's no human hands left to wind the clocks? Writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. And I find only moldy bread in the kitchen, and an orange that's almost not too spoiled to swallow. Watch at the window. From time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil. But at length there is a hissing sound. And suddenly, I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch this in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, fell asleep. Morning. Sun streams in the window. The black cloud of gas is lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road. No traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage, overturned, a blackened skeleton. I push north. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I have seen Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of the trees, I am ready to fling myself flat upon the earth. I come to a chestnut tree. October chestnuts are ripe. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. For 2 days, I wander in a vaguely northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature. A small gray squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him in wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion, the joy of finding another living being. I push north. I find dead cows in a brackish field. Beyond, the charred ruins of a dairy. The silo remains standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. Next day, I came to a city vaguely familiar in its contours, and yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant hand sliced through its highest towers with a capricious sweep of its hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it, and it rose up and became a man. A man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where are you from?
I come from many places. A long time ago, Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
At all this end of town down the river, there's only food for one. What way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
Well, what was that? Did you hear something just then?
Only a bird. Wait. A live bird?
Yeah, you get to know that birds have shadows these days. Say we're in the open here. Let's crawl over into this here doorway and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
Nah, they gone over to New York. At night, the sky's alive with their lights, just as if the people are still living in it. By day, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flaps from the airport. I believe they'll learn how to fly. Have a swig of this.
All right. Fly?
Yeah, fly. Another dead soldier.
Then it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I. 2 of us left.
They got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the New Jersey militia, National Guard. Wasn't any war more than there's any war between men and ants.
And we're eatable ants. I found that out. What will they do with us?
I thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run, keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet. They haven't begun.
They haven't begun?
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have any sense to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff, and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now, instead of rushing around blind, we got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, progress, all done.
But if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more motion pictures or symphonies written for 1 million years or so. And no nice little dinners at diners or fancy restaurants and such. If it's amusement you have to, I guess the game's up.
And what is there left?
Life, that's what. I want to live, damn it, live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either, or tamed, or fattened and flattened, or whatever, and bred like some mule or ox or chicken on a farm. Men are finished. We don't know enough. We got to learn plenty before we got a chance, and we gotta live and keep free while we learn. See?
What are you gonna do?
I'm going on right under their damn feet. I thought it all out. You see?
Tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all us that were made for wild beasts, and that's what it's got to be. That's why I watched you. All these little office workers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They haven't any stuff to them. They just used to run off to work. You know, white collar types. No freckles on their hands and cuts and scars. I've seen hundreds of them running wild to catch their commuter train in the morning in case they get canned if they didn't. Running back at night, they're afraid they won't be in time for dinner. Like their wife ain't gonna make it somewhere else, or, you know. The Martians will be a godsend to those guys. After a week or so chasing around the fields and empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to get caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Damn it, you bet I have, and that ain't all. These Martians will make pets of some of them, train them to do tricks. You know, like little monkeys or chihuahuas or what people have nowadays. Who knows? Some maybe they'll train them to hunt us. We'll be like the foxes, but they'll be the hounds for their masters.
No, that's impossible. No human being.
Yeah, they will. There's men who do it gladly. If one of them look after me, why, I'll...
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where do we live when the Martians own the Earth?
You see, I got it all figured out. We're gonna live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. My people used to work in those, putting together when they were building these cities. Under New York are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. Then there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels. You begin to see, right? And we'll get a bunch of strong men together, not weak ones. That rubbish, those white-collar types who want to serve any master they can, they're out. And we got to make safe places for us to stay in, see, and get all the books we can, science books, for the smart types. That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off, heat rays right and left, and not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, but men. Men who learn the way how. It may even be our time. Gee, imagine having one of them lovely things with heat ray and riding free. We turn on a Martian and we turn on their lapdog men who serve them. We bring everyone down on their knees who took humanity down to begin with.
That's your plan.
You and me and a few more us, we'd own the world.
I see.
Say what? What's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Goodbye, stranger.
After parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there again were the black powder and several bodies, and an ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and the 40s. I stood alone on Times Square. I caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle of me, as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent window shops, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks. Past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark. Past a shooting gallery where a row of empty guns faced a battered line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of the 1939 motor cars in the showrooms, facing the empty streets. From over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of black birds circling in the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. I had an insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street. From there, I could see standing in a silent row all along the mall 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their great steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabited those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there, before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when the bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefaction and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared. Slain after all man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all of deep space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see different. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of infinite space. But that is a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained, perhaps. Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study, here at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record that began in a deserted farmhouse in Grover's Mill. It's strange to see from my window the university spires dim in blue through the April haze. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. It's strange to see young people there strolling on the green where the new spring grass lies healed of the last scars of a bruised earth. It's strange to watch sightseers enter the museum where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept in public view. It's strange to recall the time when I first saw it. Bright and clean, hard and silent. Still under the dawn of that last great day.